Leon, one of the things that happened to him is there was a party going on up near Frat Row, and someone reported noise, and the police went to investigate. And it turned out later that no one had reported any noise. The police used to just cruise, and if they saw lights on, they'd come up to see if there was something they could break up. And it was Leon who opened the door. And they demanded that he come outside, and he said no. And then they demanded that they come in, and he said, "You have no cause to come in." So one of them grabbed him and pulled him out, and they beat him really badly. And that happened a couple of times. And the last time I saw Leon, he was very vague. He was not defeated, just living somewhere else in his head. And then I never saw him again. In the 70s, hard drugs started coming into the moon, and then prostitution, and I stopped going to the moon. It was just, it was sad. All the sense of community was gone. The Vietnam War was going on. A lot of people had lost hope, except you know, people who got involved in the anti-war movement. That was, I think that really saved a lot of our lives. The despair, the hopelessness, and so on was really saved by the anti-war movement. And in those days, the media showed pictures every night. So the American public got to see exactly what was going on, and people just wouldn't stand for it. I mean, nowadays, unless you go on the internet or you read the left-wing press, you have absolutely no idea of what's going on in this country. I was working as a clerk at the downtown public library one day when one of the big anti-Vietnam protests started down the street, and we were all ran to the windows and we were looking, and several of my coworkers said, "We'll make up an excuse, go." And so I sneaked out and marched. And it was somewhat fearful at times. I mean, you did it anyway, but the police, tac squads, would be lined up in alleys with their big shields and their, you know, hiding behind all this gear, waiting for something to happen or for one of their provocateurs to start something so they could wade in and, you know, beat on everybody. But the sheer numbers really kept a lot of that from happening. So there was a tremendous amount of anger and a sense that if we all stuck together, we could make change. And that was very, very exciting. I mean, to really have the feeling that you could make change if you worked with other people. I think, yeah, I do. I see so much more work between groups that were formerly separated by racism, sexism, homophobia, classism, whatever. A lot of people, I mean, I see it more and more and more. It's like a spiral, you know. It keeps going around, but every time it comes around a little bit higher. And, you know, sure, some people say, well, if you live to be 500, you might. But what's a life lived without commitment and trying to make change and so on? What is it? Sitcoms and credit card payments? I mean, you know, I don't think there's really any alternative, you know. You can't hide. It used to be people would say, well, I'm going to go to Canada if it gets worse. Well, you should talk to my Canadian friends. There's nowhere to run. It's a global system, and you have to face it at its roots. And, you know, we have more of a responsibility, I think, here in the U.S., because if we make change here, it affects the whole globe. This is really the core of the